Yeah, this is what we doing, baby. Going through some of the other RFAs and talking about offer sheets. Again, I haven't talked about this in a while. Actually, my most recent video about Besser was about the same kind of thing, but there was no option for an offer sheet in that context. Instead, we're talking about Kyle Connor today. The Winnipeg Jets RFA, who is making headlines, and he's the big fish who everybody wants to know what's going to happen with. Wait a minute, that's Laine. Connor is also a very good RFA that the Winnipeg Jets need to re-sign, and he's in a position where reports are coming out saying that he is the subject of potential RFA offer sheet targets. This is from Sportsnet. Sean Reynolds talks about it. He says that at least 3 teams have considered signing Connor to an offer sheet. Now, I'm actually reading this from Spector's Hockey because Spector does a great job laying it all out, and he has a little Spector's note at the end that I think is very, very intriguing. But essentially, the Sportsnet article talks about how Kyle Connor, who is 22 and who has had a really good track record of success in the NHL thus far, is the subject of at least 3 teams and their radars for the offer sheet. Let's go over a little bit of this Sportsnet article because there are some really good points made on the argument of what Connor should get, how good he is, and the overall goal for both of these parties. Connor is looking for security. That was listed on Elliot Friedman's 31 Thoughts. With 2 30-goal seasons under his belt, the belief is Connor's consistency has warranted a long-term contract. Now, in terms of what that could be like, it was mentioned that Clayton Keller's recent 8-year deal with a $7.15 million cap hit could be a comparable, and it's not too far off, in my opinion. Keller and Connor are kind of in the same boat in terms of how good they could be and how good they are. You could definitely argue that one is better than the other or whatever, but just in general, these 2 players are, in my opinion, of kind of the same caliber. You even remember with Clayton Keller, once he signed his contract, that's when the league kind of started being like, okay, what the heck is this, man? The guy's 22, 21? He's making so much money after a year where he just completely didn't live up to the first year and the hype from that. But obviously, sophomore slump, it does kind of exist to an extent, and it did definitely affect Clayton Keller. As for Connor, though, we already talked about it. Connor ain't too affected by that. Just going over both of these players right here, Clayton Keller, he dropped from 65 points to 47 from his first to his second year. And as for Connor, he had 20 games played back in 2016-17, where he mostly spent his time with the Manitoba Moose. But his 17-18 and his 18-19 were very productive. Back-to-back 30 goals, we already talked about it. He's a player who's only 22, and he's got so much room to just continue going up as an NHL left wing with elite potential. The guy is getting 30-goal seasons at this age. He's probably going to be able to max out as a 30-goal, 40-assist guy by the time he's in his prime, and that's not even too far off now. So, Connor, with the way things are, he could definitely ask for that long-term contract, and he could definitely get something in the range of a Clayton Keller, in my opinion. It's just that the Winnipeg Jets need to sign Laine, and they have their own cap issues as well. Connor is a player who can demand the money because he's worth it, but there's always that other side, which is why the offer sheet comes in. And it's why there are teams that could potentially get Connor, teams that could afford him, and other teams that might just be on the radar here. Let's take a look at the Spector's note on Kyle Connor from Spector's Hockey. A rival general manager could wait until close to the start of the season to sign Connor to an offer sheet. It could complicate Cheveldayoff's efforts to match and remain salary cap compliant when the season opens next month. That depends on whether Connor's still unsigned by then and if he's willing to agree to an offer sheet. Cap Friendly indicates 6 teams: the Bruins, the Lightning, the Ducks, the Blue Jackets, Sens, and Avalanche, who have the sufficient cap space to sign Connor, assuming he goes with a similar contract like Clayton Keller. Half of them, the Bruins, Lightning, and Avalanche, have RFA talent of their own to re-sign. Bruins, Charlie McAvoy. Lightning, Braden Point. Colorado Avalanche, Mikko Rantanen. Winnipeg Jets, Patrik Laine. So there's a big pool here of teams that maybe could do it, maybe could potentially use that money for other players, but in general, it looks like just from this little excerpt right here, the Sens, the Ducks, and the Blue Jackets have the money to do that without having too much of their own priorities ahead of them. Who knows? Because Connor is in a position where if he gets that long-term deal, he gets that 7 years, he gets that 8 years from Winnipeg, he's most likely going to take it if the money is right. North of $7-ish million, I could definitely see around there. Because, hey man, the guy's resume is great. He was already touted as a player who was going to be pretty good coming into this league. Even back when he was in college, Kyle Connor was a pretty solid first-round pick. I remember that specifically. People said that he was going to be better than a lot of the guys taken after him. He was supposed to be better than Besser. They are both in the USHL, and Connor had a much better draft year. And now Kyle Connor is here with 2 straight 30-goal years, 2 straight 57 and 66-point years. He's averaging 60-something points a year, and he's only 22. This guy can get the money that he wants, and I'm not talking about Marner. That's definitely not on the table here, but if he wants to get that killer money, I say go for it. I say go for a little bit higher, and if there's a team that's willing to pay for that and give up the offer sheet compensation that's necessary to do that, I can totally see it happening. Now, that's only if. Because again, we've only seen one offer sheet in the past 10 years or whatever, and that was Aho, and that was super recent, and that was super denied quickly, so there isn't any guarantee for any of that. However, it's still fun to take a look at the possibilities. Kyle Connor, alongside of the guys in Anaheim. Raquel, Kash, Ryan Getzlav, Maxime Comtois, all of these guys playing with Connor would be really, really cool. And then going over to the other teams. Hey, Columbus, they lost all of their great players, and now they just got a Gustav Nyquist to show for it. He's not bad, but a Kyle Connor would make that look pretty good too. As for the Ottawa Senators, hey, what about having Kyle Connor alongside of the really good rookie renaissance that the Sens have built for themselves? Guys like Shabbat, Brandstrom, Kachuk, Formenton, Batherson, Brown, all meshing with that Kyle Connor 30-goal ability. That sounds pretty good too. Even with the other teams that don't have the freedom, I guess, as the Ducks, the Blue Jackets, and the Sens, the Bruins, they could really do well with a guy like Kyle Connor. The Lightning, don't even need to say it. The Lightning will find a way to get every NHL star there is in their roster one day because that's just the way they work. And the Colorado Avalanche already have arguably the best line the NHL has seen in years. In Rantanen, McKinnon, and Landeskog. Rantanen, by the way, also asking for money. So Kyle Connor, is he going to be in that position? Does a team make a move to open up the cap space to get Connor in there? Heck, the Canadiens were in a position where they were always talking about the offer sheet, and they made one. It didn't work, but they made one, so we know that the flexibility with Bergevin and his crew is there. Do they find a way to get rid of Alzner and use the extra money to get Kyle Connor signed to a deal that was less than what Aho got? Who knows? Everything is a who knows at this point, but most of all, Kyle Connor is in a position where he is the target now. He is one of the ones that has been put as a target on his back. We have a ton of RFAs, a ton of them offer sheet eligible. Kyle Connor is one of the ones that doesn't look like he's going to demand too much money in compared to some of the other ones. Marner does not want $11 million, so that's terrible. He's going to want so much more than that. Braden Point could ask for upwards of 8, 8.5. I don't know about 9. Kyle Connor is in that boat where he doesn't necessarily need as much. Sure, you could say that he's not as good of a player as those guys. He only got 60 points. Hey, Braden Point got 90. So did Marner. But Connor's elite, man. He is elite. And he's going to stay that way. He's going to develop and he's going to grow. He could be a point-per-game player in his prime. My 70-point range estimate earlier on in the video was a very conservative estimate because the guy's been so close to 70 so many times before. He had 66 last year. Literally 4 more, he would have been at 70. It's so possible that he's one of those players that emerges as a consistent point-per-game player by the time his career is over. And Connor now today is in the subject of potential RFA talks. So who knows? An offer sheet? Is it out there? I'm not too sure. I wouldn't be surprised, but I'm not too sure. Hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.